Close your eyes for a moment and think, who are you, the one watching this video right now? Your thoughts, feelings, and memories. Are they nothing more than electrical signals moving through your brain? And what about consciousness? The sense of being you. Is it solely produced by the brain, or could its source lie much deeper? This question has fascinated philosophers, scientists, and mystics throughout human history. Ancient civilizations believed that consciousness was an entity separate from the body, one that continued to exist even after death. Religions called this immortal essence the soul. However, for a long time, modern science distanced itself from the concept of the soul. But has science truly reached a definitive conclusion on this matter? Until the early 20th century, there was a strong belief that consciousness emerged entirely from chemical and electrical processes in the brain. Then quantum physics entered the scene. This scientific revolution shattered some of classical science's most fundamental assumptions, revealing that the universe is far stranger and far more mysterious than we ever imagined. Could consciousness be explained through quantum processes? Is the foundation of the universe matter, or consciousness itself? And the most critical question, is the soul real, or is it merely an illusion? In our search for answers, we'll shed light on some of the most striking intersections of science and philosophy. If you're ready, let's embark on a journey that pushes the boundaries of what we know about the nature of the human mind and the soul. Historical and philosophical origins of the soul. Throughout human history, the concept of the soul has existed in every culture, belief system, and philosophical tradition. From ancient times to the present, this idea has been explored in different ways across various disciplines. Yet, they all share one common thread: humans have never limited their existence to just the physical body. How did this idea develop? How did the concept of the soul evolve from philosophy to religion and scientific history? The first traces of the soul, ancient times and mythologies. The earliest records of the soul concept can be found in ancient Egypt, Sumerian culture, Hinduism, and ancient Greek philosophy. In ancient Egypt, the soul was divided into two components, Ka and Ba. Ka represented life force, while Ba symbolized the personality that continued to exist after death. The Sumerians believed that humans lived on in a different form after death. For them, the soul was an independent energy separate from the physical body. Hinduism viewed the soul, or Atman, as connected to Brahman, the universal consciousness. It was believed that the soul reincarnates into different bodies after death. In ancient Greek philosophy, Plato and Aristotle offered two distinct perspectives on the soul. Plato argued that the soul is immortal and exists independently of matter, belonging to the realm of ideas. Aristotle saw the soul as intertwined with the body, existing only in conjunction with it, without independent existence. During this period, the soul was generally regarded as an immortal, non-physical entity. However, as philosophical and scientific thought advanced, this perspective gradually changed. Theological interpretations in the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages marked a period when the concept of the soul was shaped by religious doctrines. Islam teaches that the soul is breathed into the body by God, forming the essence of human life. Christianity claims that the soul is created by God and continues its existence in heaven or hell after death. Judaism also connects the soul to God, but offers a more ambiguous view on the afterlife. During this time, science did not challenge the idea of the soul but largely accepted the religious framework. However, this began to change with the Age of Enlightenment. The Enlightenment and the rise of modern science. In the 16th and 17th centuries, the scientific revolution brought a new, rational, and empirical perspective to the study of the soul. René Descartes famously divided humans into two distinct components: body, matter, and mind, soul. He believed the soul was an immaterial entity that existed only through thought. John Locke and David Hume questioned the very existence of the soul. Locke proposed that the human mind is a blank slate, tabula rasa, acquiring all knowledge through sensory experience. Friedrich Nietzsche argued that the soul is merely a human construct, a product of our search for meaning, and would ultimately be invalidated by science. During this era, materialist and rationalist approaches gained prominence. The soul ceased to be viewed as an independent entity and was instead seen as a phenomenon produced by the brain. Modern neuroscience and the soul. Can the brain explain consciousness? While modern science has yet to experimentally prove the existence of the soul, significant research has been conducted on consciousness. Neuroscience suggests that consciousness is simply the product of brain activity. EEG brain imaging shows that specific states of consciousness are directly linked to distinct brain regions. Chemical and electrical processes in the brain shape our thoughts, emotions, and even our personality. Brain damage can cause profound changes in consciousness. For instance, damage to the frontal lobe can lead to drastic personality changes. All of this seems to support the idea that consciousness is confined to the brain. But there's a problem. How does consciousness emerge? How can subjective experiences be explained by physical processes? This is where quantum physics enters the picture, opening new doors to understanding the relationship between consciousness and the universe. Next step: can science explain the soul? For centuries, people have believed in the soul as a separate entity from the body. However, modern science claims that consciousness can be fully explained by the brain's functions. But what if science is wrong? In the next section, we'll take a deep dive into quantum physics and explore the intriguing connection between consciousness and the soul. Science's struggle with the soul and consciousness, the brain or an independent entity. In the previous sections, we explored the historical development and philosophical foundations of the concept of the soul. From ancient times to the present, this idea has been a central part of religion, mythology, and philosophy. However, modern science, particularly neuroscience, claims to explain consciousness entirely through physical processes. So, is consciousness truly a product of the brain? Is what we call the soul merely complex neuronal activity? In this section, we'll examine modern scientific research on consciousness and explore whether the soul can be scientifically explained. Modern neuroscience. Can we explain consciousness? Traditional science defines consciousness as a byproduct of chemical and electrical processes in the brain. According to this view, our thoughts and emotions result from the interaction of neurons through electrical signals. Consciousness is associated with activity in specific brain regions. Brain damage can lead to changes in personality, which supports the idea that the soul is not an independent entity. For example, individuals with frontal lobe damage may undergo drastic personality changes, becoming completely different from their former selves. Brain tumors or neurological diseases can directly affect a person's cognitive processes and perception. Neurological stimulation techniques can induce conscious experiences artificially. These findings suggest that consciousness is a phenomenon entirely generated by the brain. But here's the big question: how does consciousness emerge? Science can explain how the brain works in detail, but it cannot fully explain why or how we experience consciousness itself. Neuroscience may answer the question, where is consciousness? But why does consciousness exist, remains a profound mystery. At this point, some theories propose that consciousness might exist independently of physical processes. The unknown aspects of consciousness, mind-body dualism. Scientists studying the relationship between the brain and consciousness have developed two main approaches to explain this duality. Materialist theory. Consciousness is entirely a product of the brain and can be explained by physical processes. Dualist theory. Consciousness exists independently of the brain and may have a reality beyond physical processes. The problem with the materialist approach. If consciousness were purely a product of physical processes, why would every individual have a unique subjective experience? Why do two people with identical brain activity perceive the same event differently? The brain performs many activities that do not generate consciousness. What distinguishes conscious processes from unconscious ones? These questions have led scientists to realize that classical physics may be insufficient to explain consciousness. And this is where quantum physics enters the scene. Quantum physics and consciousness, a reality beyond matter? Quantum physics, the science of understanding the fundamental building blocks of the universe, opens a new window into understanding consciousness due to its peculiarities. The intriguing connection between quantum physics and consciousness. The double-slit experiment. A particle behaves differently when observed. This experiment suggests that consciousness may influence physical reality. Quantum superposition. An electron can exist in multiple locations at the same time. Could consciousness have similar properties? Quantum entanglement. Two particles, separated by light years, can instantly affect each other. Could consciousness also interact beyond physical boundaries? These scientific observations support the idea that consciousness may not be confined to the brain alone. Next step, Carl Jung's theory of consciousness and synchronicity. We've seen the challenges science faces in explaining consciousness. While neuroscience cannot fully explain it, quantum physics suggests that consciousness may exist independently of material processes. But how does this connect with psychology? In the next section, we'll explore Carl Gustav Jung's theories on synchronicity and the collective unconscious, some of the most compelling arguments for the idea that consciousness and the soul might exist beyond physical reality. Carl Jung and synchronicity. Is consciousness connected to the universe? In previous sections, we explored the nature of consciousness and its relationship with modern science. But we reached a critical question. Is consciousness truly confined to the brain, or could it extend beyond physical boundaries and connect to the universe itself? This is where Carl Gustav Jung comes into the picture. Not only one of the most influential figures in modern psychology, Jung went beyond classical psychology's brain-based explanations of consciousness. One of Jung's most groundbreaking claims was that consciousness is not an individual phenomenon but a collective structure that could be linked to a universal order. This idea, combined with his theory of synchronicity, served as an important bridge between quantum physics and consciousness. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious and the soul. Jung proposed that the human mind is not shaped solely by individual experiences and learning, but also by a deep reservoir of inherited knowledge from our ancestors. He called this the collective unconscious. According to Jung, the human psyche consists of three fundamental layers. Conscious mind, our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors in everyday life. Personal unconscious, repressed memories and experiences unique to each individual, which remain below the level of consciousness. Collective unconscious, a shared pool of universal symbols, archetypes, and motifs inherited throughout human history. This raises intriguing questions. If the human mind is part of a collective consciousness, how does it function? Could what we call the soul be a reflection of this collective consciousness? Is consciousness linked to a field of information beyond physical reality? Jung argued that the collective unconscious exists independently of individual existence and is connected not only to all humans but also to the universe itself. Could this theory be an important clue that the soul might exist beyond the physical body? Jung's theory of synchronicity, meaningful coincidences. One of Jung's most notable theories is the concept of synchronicity. According to this theory, some events in the universe, which seem like mere coincidences, may actually be connected in meaningful ways. For example, thinking about a person, only for them to call you moments later. Encountering a symbol or event that offers guidance during a critical phase of your life. Experiencing dreams that later manifest in reality. Jung believed these were not just coincidences. Instead, he argued that the universe operates according to a deeper order. Interestingly, this idea bears a striking resemblance to quantum entanglement. Synchronicity and quantum entanglement. Is consciousness linked to the universe? In quantum mechanics, there is a phenomenon known as quantum entanglement. According to this principle, two particles, separated by light years, can instantaneously affect each other without any physical connection. So, could consciousness also form a connection with distant events in a similar way? The striking similarities between synchronicity and quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement, two particles remain connected across vast distances, and a change in one instantly affects the other. Synchronicity, an individual's unconscious mind can synchronize with distant events or people without a causal relationship. Could this suggest that consciousness is not bound by the laws of physical reality? If a collective consciousness truly exists in the universe, could it, like quantum entanglement, operate independently of time and space? Jung and Wolfgang Pauli, the meeting of quantum physics and psychology. Jung's theories extended beyond psychology and overlapped with modern physics. In particular, he collaborated with Wolfgang Pauli, one of the leading figures in quantum physics, to explore the possibility of grounding the concept of synchronicity in scientific terms. Pauli proposed that physical laws might encompass not only matter but also abstract concepts like consciousness. Together, Jung and Pauli developed the idea that there could be a bridge between consciousness and matter. Archetypes and quantum fields. Jung's theory of archetypes bears a fascinating resemblance to fundamental energy fields in quantum physics. Jung's archetypes, universal motifs within the collective unconscious that influence all humans. Pauli's energy field, the idea that the universe is underpinned by a fundamental energy field connecting all existence. These parallels suggest that consciousness might not be an individual phenomenon but a fundamental component of the universe itself. Jung's perspective on the soul. Is consciousness beyond matter? Jung's views on the soul proposed that consciousness is not confined to the physical body. According to Jung, dreams and symbols are ways the soul communicates with the collective unconscious. Some experiences suggest that the soul might persist even after death. Synchronicity could indicate that the soul exists beyond time and space. What does this mean when combined with quantum physics? If consciousness is a quantum-level energy form, could it survive beyond death? If the universe is shaped by a fundamental consciousness, could the soul be part of this greater structure? Jung did not provide definitive answers to these questions. However, his work strongly suggested that consciousness and the soul cannot be fully explained by physical laws. Jung's theories. How do they explain the soul? The collective unconscious implies that the soul may exist independently of individual experience. Synchronicity suggests the soul could be part of a universal order. Jung's collaboration with Pauli points to the possibility that consciousness is connected to quantum laws. Dream and symbol analysis implies that the soul resides within the unconscious mind. What does all of this mean? In the next section, we'll bring together these ideas and seek an answer to the ultimate question: can science explain the soul? The soul, scientific reality or humanity's greatest illusion. For thousands of years, humanity has pursued one of life's most fundamental questions. Does the soul truly exist, or is it merely a product of our brain? Philosophy and religion claim that the soul is an immortal, universal entity independent of the body. Meanwhile, classical science has long argued that consciousness is nothing more than the result of chemical and electrical processes in the brain. However, thanks to quantum physics, consciousness research, and psychology, we now know that there isn't a single definitive answer to this question. Throughout this documentary, we've examined three primary perspectives. The classical scientific approach rejects the existence of the soul and reduces consciousness to brain activity. Quantum physics and modern scientific models argue that consciousness cannot be reduced to matter and may involve complex quantum connections. Philosophical and psychological models, Jung and the collective unconscious, claim that consciousness is not an individual phenomenon but rather connected to a collective and universal structure. So, given all this information, can we definitively say whether the soul exists? Classical science. Is consciousness a product of the brain? Modern neuroscience accepts that consciousness arises from interactions between neurons in the brain. According to this approach, when the brain is damaged, consciousness changes. Memories, identity, and thoughts are entirely produced by neurons. When the brain stops functioning, consciousness ceases to exist. While this explanation seems logical in many ways, it still fails to fully explain the origin of consciousness. Can consciousness truly be explained solely through brain chemistry? Quantum physics. Is consciousness a universal field? Quantum physics sheds light on consciousness phenomena that classical science cannot explain. The double-slit experiment showed that observation can influence matter. Quantum entanglement demonstrated that connections can exist beyond time and space. The observer effect blurs the boundaries between consciousness and physical reality. The orchestroor theory and David Bohm's holistic universe model suggest that consciousness might exist at the quantum level. Could consciousness be a quantum phenomenon independent of the brain? Jung's psychological model, the soul and the collective unconscious. Jung's theory suggests that consciousness is not merely an individual phenomenon, but is instead connected to a collective knowledge field that has existed throughout human history. Jung's ideas highlight the following: synchronicity, a deep connection between consciousness and physical reality. Archetypes, innate, unconscious symbols shared by all of humanity. His collaboration with Wolfgang Pauli revealed that consciousness and the physical universe might be governed by the same fundamental order. This theory defines the soul not as something confined to the physical body, but as a collective and universal consciousness. Is the soul real, or a concept created by humanity? At this point, science cannot definitively prove or disprove the existence of the soul. However, the three major perspectives offer the following key conclusions. Classical science reduces consciousness to brain activity and dismisses the soul. Quantum physics suggests that consciousness may be a process beyond matter, possibly connected to a universal field. Jungian psychology proposes that consciousness may be a collective structure, independent of the individual self. Given this, we are left with three main possibilities. The soul doesn't exist. Consciousness is entirely the result of chemical processes in the brain. The soul is not a traditional entity. but rather part of a quantum-level consciousness field. The soul is an energy form connected to the universal collective consciousness and may persist even after death. Which theory you believe depends on your perspective on science and personal experience. One thing is certain: knowledge about the soul and consciousness will evolve. As science progresses, so does our understanding of the soul and consciousness. Where will future research on the soul and consciousness lead? Ongoing research in the scientific community aims to uncover the true nature of consciousness and the soul. Artificial intelligence and consciousness. One of the largest projects aimed at determining whether consciousness arises purely from physical processes. Quantum brain theories. Rapidly advancing studies that explore how consciousness might be connected to quantum processes. Near-death consciousness experiments. Researching whether consciousness continues after the brain stops functioning. Could these efforts eventually place the concepts of the soul and consciousness on a scientific foundation? We cannot give a definitive answer today. But perhaps in the future, the greatest discovery of science will be proving that consciousness is not confined to the physical brain. What do you think? Despite all the scientific evidence and theories, the ultimate answer to whether the soul exists remains uncertain. But one thing we know for sure: we are conscious. We are here. We perceive and think. So, is consciousness just a physical process, or is it part of a universal structure? Does the soul truly exist? Or is it simply an illusion created by our brain? Is consciousness physical, or is it a universal energy field? Share your thoughts in the comments and join the discussion. And don't forget, as science advances, our questions about the soul and consciousness may one day be answered. If you found this video helpful, please support us by subscribing to our channel and liking the video.